Everybody loves and respects Matt.
Follow Matt on Twitter and Instagram at Matt Schneidman. Sound off now on the NicoleLaw.com talk and text line at 1-877-794-1973. That's 1-877-794-1973.
If I'm in this crummy situation, let's make content out of it.
The Matt Schneidman Show is brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Bet above the rest.
Never go corporate. Always go local.
With Hunter Baumgart, here's Matt Schneidman on the game.
Yeah, with Hunter Baumgart.
Well, Hunter's
It's a new
here.
day here, Doug. What do you want? It's the Matt Schneidman Show. We're back
with Hunter
for one day, and not one day only. We're going to do a couple of these throughout the offseason surrounding major events when there's stuff to talk about. Combine, free agency, draft. I texted our boss, Tim Scott, and said, I want to work more. That's how messed up I am. I said, I want to earn my paycheck more. And he said, we'd love to have you on the air. So Doug is in Indianapolis. I am not. I'm back in Green Bay. I was in Indy earlier this week. We got the 3-man booth today. As you can see, if you're watching the stream, Doug in the convention center where I was earlier this week, Hunter Baumgart in the studio in Milwaukee, and myself in Green Bay. Hunter, I can't tell if you're like trying to get me to see something or if
I'm trying
you're
to
just
point
pointing
to you guys, but it's messing me up because it's the mirror image that I'm looking at. So
okay,
that's Hunter.
Yep.
And
this is great radio.
Right.
Yeah,
so we got plenty to talk about coming out of the combine, previewing free agency. This is our first show since the Friday after the season ended, I believe. And what better way to start it than with something that has nothing to do with what Brian Gutekunst talked about at the combine, and that's a DK Metcalf trade that popped into my timeline this morning after a reporter named Corbin Smith from Seattle reported basically that the Packers had an offer on the table to the Seahawks for a DK Metcalf trade that I believe his wording was constituted a high draft pick and a receiver. And I said, oh, DK Metcalf. I know that was one of the names that had been floated around in terms of veteran wide receivers the Packers could try and acquire, along with Devontae Adams, a T. Higgins, but we hadn't really seen any substantial reports about, okay, the Packers are interested or this or that. And I'm not here to say, oh, he's wrong, or meet me at Starbucks, or yeah. If people don't get that, I would just Google Starbucks NFL reporters. Hilarious story. I'm just here to say this is what my reporting is, and what I was told by the person I trust is that there have been no negotiations or talks between the Packers and Seahawks about a DK Metcalf trade. Now, I'm not going to, like I said, sit here and say Corbin Smith and Peter Bukowski are terrible reporters. I'm not going to sit here and say that. Someone's going to clip me just saying Corbin Smith and Peter Bukowski are terrible reporters and leave out I'm not going to say before that.
I won't.
Thank you. But what I am going to do is just say what I'm told and the info that I trust, and that there's nothing substantial here. There's nothing here, period. Certainly not any negotiations that have taken place. Does that mean this conversation won't arise at some point this offseason? I can't sit here and say that the Packers are completely uninterested in DK Metcalf or that they're never going to approach the Seahawks about DK Metcalf. I can just say that that has not happened up until this point. Now, we know John Schneider and Brian Gutekunst are very close. They worked together here in Green Bay for a long time. So there's a very clear line of communication there. If something needs to be discussed, it just hasn't yet. So that's that. It would be a nice addition, depending on what the Packers would give up. But yeah, nothing there right now.
And I think the operative word is yet. And I don't know if it means that it's going to be DK Metcalf or somebody else. But what Josh Jacobs told us and others down in New Orleans Super Bowl week is, and you know, you talked to Brian Gutekunst on Tuesday, and he said, well, we're not going to let players, you know, dictate what we do. And I get that. I understand that. But the other overriding, I think, vector of this whole thing is that I don't think he was wrong. And
no, he's not.
I know that it ruffled some feathers. Okay, go out and play better then. The wide receiving core this past season, 2024, was disappointing. I don't know that there's any other way of putting it, because the narrative of the offseason, and we all know how much you love narratives, Matt, the narrative of the offseason was, well, who's going to be the number one receiver? Do they need a number one receiver? Well, they needed somebody to step up, and they just didn't have anybody to step up. And I think that what you saw with Jordan Love, as he was trying to become, something of what he was in the second half of the 2023 season, when he was arguably the best quarterback, or certainly one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, was there a regression? You could say that perhaps there was, even though I still think that he was very good. I just don't think that, for whatever reason, those players that really stepped up in their first or second years, I don't know if they'd all took a step back in years 2 or 3. Injury certainly was a part of it, but they didn't have the same production by a long shot that they had the previous year. And that's, for this offense, so critical. And it exposed the fact that, yeah, there is a lot of youth there, but if they don't continue to take incremental steps, they're just going to be young, and they're not going to be even that young anymore as time goes on.
Matt, my quick question before you just, how does just probably listeners probably are wondering, how are two reports so different? And I don't need you to bash it. I just in life and your experience as a reporter, how do reports get so different? One's very detailed in what Corbin Smith is reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but he's very detailed. You simply say nothing's going on between them. How can, for a fan out there, they're like, well, what can I believe, kind of thing?
Yo, that's a good question, and it just means we have different sources. Now, I don't know who his sources are. I'm not here to say his sources are crap. I can just put the trust in who I talk to and the info I'm getting. And I did see a comment out there online today that, well, it's got to be true. There are a lot of details out there, and you're fine in believing that. You're free to believe whatever you want. It's just my job to put out what I think is the accurate information. And it just means that, we have different sources, and there are a lot of different ways to get information. Like, I'm not talking about this instance in particular, but there have been times in the past where, I've gotten information from more direct sources to the Packers, more, adjacent sources to the Packers. And it's your job as a reporter to vet its accuracy and think, okay, even if it's not coming from a direct source and it's coming from maybe 2 or 3 people that it got passed on to, can I still consider it accurate? Again, I'm not speaking directly to this instance. I'm just speaking in general of how people can get certain information. So, like Ian Rappaport reporting that the Packers are shopping Jair Alexander. I don't know where Ian got that information from. We can say it's accurate. Ian's good at what he does. It could have come from Brian Gutekunst. It could have come from an agent. It could have come from other teams around the NFL telling Ian, we're talking with the Packers about Jair Alexander. So there are a lot of different ways to get information. In today's day and age, when there's such a rush to get things right, there might be some misses here and there. I've certainly had misses before. I remember 2 years ago, I reported before a game that Jair Alexander was questionable for, that he was expected to play, and then he didn't play. And I did not do a good enough job that afternoon of vetting my information and making sure that it was rock solid. And it's probably not the last time I'm going to be wrong on a report where I use a source. But we're all just trying our best out here, I think. At least I am.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was just curious.
But what I was going to say about Doug's receiver comments is it's a sure thing that they're going to address that position this offseason. Brian Gutekunst has not outright said, I agree with Josh Jacobs, we need a number one wide receiver. During his season-ending press conference in January, he basically said, we need the guys in the room to take a step and perhaps fill that role. But he also didn't close the door on making an outside acquisition. He was asked on Tuesday in his meeting with the local media in Indianapolis, local media meaning Green Bay media. He said, I appreciate Josh. We talked a little bit about this at the end of the season. What does that mean? Meaning the wide receiver one talk. Is that a tight end, running back? The one thing I do know is Josh desperately wants to win, and I really do appreciate that about him. I think he'd like to have as many good players as we can get. Gutekunst would go on to say that he talked with Jacobs also after he made those comments. And he said, I'm not worried about things that are in the media unless they're detrimental to our football team, which that wasn't. So he takes no issue with what Josh said. Does that mean he agrees with it? Not necessarily. Maybe he does. Gutekunst was asked again if he thinks he needs a proven veteran receiver. He said, you'd like to have somebody move into that space, maybe. But at the same time, I'd like multiple guys to be able to move into that space. What I'm looking for is guys that when they're called upon can perform at a high level. I think we have a lot of guys that have done that and are moving into that space. Whether that means acquiring one or one of those guys we have now remains to be seen. So he's leaving the door open. Regardless of if you think you need a proven veteran or not to be the alpha in that room, you need someone. Christian Watson's going to miss at least half the season. You need to either draft a guy or get a receiver in free agency to fill depth, because I'm not sure you can go into the 2025 season, guys, saying, okay, my top four are Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, and Bo Mellon / Malik Heath. I just don't know if what we saw from the passing game this season would make you think, okay, that's a good idea that we can do that again in 2025.
Well, there's no alpha in any of those guys that you mentioned. I mean, even a year ago when we were all talking about, who's going to be the number one, that was the question. I mean, it was a question. It wasn't going to center on, well, Jaden Reed definitely is your number one wide receiver, although a lot of people thought that Jaden Reed was perhaps the one that had the most upside. That's not an alpha yet. The last alpha that the Packers had might be the next alpha the Packers have. His name has been out there. He seems open to the possibility of coming back to Green Bay, and I don't know if where there's smoke, there's fire, but I at least think they're going to explore Devontae Adams. That door I don't think is slammed shut just based on some of the things that Devontae has said, mostly to Kay Adams over the last month or so.
Yeah, we don't know if the Packers want him, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And they can't comment publicly.
And they can't because he's somebody else's
under
property.
Contract with another team.
But I wonder if they're going to address that specifically with Devontae and the Jets. I don't know.
It's possible.
I mean, I'd be open to it. The one thing today that, starting to think about the DK Metcalf move and thinking about this wide receiver core, it is like, yeah, that would just be that guy that you can go to at any time. And that's just a different thought when you're thinking about this team and how they're playing and how you think about them in the red zone, how you think about them in a long passing down. Just a guy, and you think about what DK Metcalf has done with Geno Smith, and nothing against Geno Smith, but I would think that Jordan Love is going to play hopefully for a long time and have a little bit better career and more talent than Geno Smith. So you'd love to see what DK Metcalf could do with Jordan Love, especially as he matures and gets into his third year starting. So like that type of player, doesn't have to be DK, could be Devontae, could be anyone else, but that just would take him to the next level. Even if and you're going to have to, even if you don't say do a trade and give up a wide receiver is not going to play as much because you're going to have a number one that comes in from the outside.
Right. Look, I get the train of thought that it's beneficial at times to have four guys who can be a number one because, you're deep. It keeps defenses guessing as to where the ball's going. I get that, but we saw this past season why the Packers could use a true alpha. There were spurts where these guys played like quote unquote true number ones, but those spurts didn't happen consistently enough. They're all good role players is what they are. And we've discussed this ad nauseum on this show, especially at the end of the season and after this past season. And look, it worked in 2023, but I think for long-term sustainable success, you need a guy who's a proven veteran. Now, even if Brian Gutekunst agrees that the Packers need that guy, there's no guarantee they are able to get him. if the trade compensation doesn't match up, if the money doesn't match up in free agency, it's not exactly the most enticing group of free agent wide receivers. T. Higgins isn't going to reach free agency. There are reports out there that the Bengals are going to tag him. Chris Godwin coming off a major injury, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs coming off a major injury. It seems, and I've said this before, it just seems that the most viable option for the Packers going forward is either trade for one, like a Devontae Adams or a DK Metcalf, or just draft a guy in the first, second, third round. Because not only do you need a guy for depth this year while Watson's injured, but you think about, okay, it was nice having Reed, Dobbs, Watson, Wicks all in their first or second years. But then the problem down the road is they're all coming up on contract situations in the relative, same window. So the probability is that you're not going to be able to keep all of them, and you might lose multiple of those guys. So you're going to need guys to then fill the back end of that room. And that probably starts in the draft this year.
And the unfortunate part about that is that this isn't necessarily a great draft for wide receivers. I mean, there are a couple of guys that are out there. Matthew Golden is graded out. I've seen him possibly coming to Green Bay in a couple of mock drafts. The wide receiver, Egbuka from Ohio State, if he's still on the board at 23, he may not be. There just aren't a lot of wide receivers in this group. And, there's no Marvin Harrison, put it that way. No Marvin Harrison Jr. There's no Chris Olave in this year's group. No stud that at least has, dressed himself as such on the NFL level. Now, some guys get to the league and they blossom. We've seen that.
Well, it's the kid from Arizona.
The kid from Arizona. Oh, yeah.
Tetairoa McMillan.
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to be available. And
he's not going to be available.
Travis Hunter, maybe, although it seems
he wants to play cornerback, I think.
Right. I think Tetairoa McMillan's probably the best pure wide receiver in the draft. Can Travis Hunter play there? We'll see. But Doug, you're right. In terms of top end wide receiver talent, there seems to be a drop off after that first guy.
Yeah. Who's not going to be there at 23. So,
correct.
Yeah, I don't know if the Packers address that. I would love to see them address it in the first round just so we could stop talking about Javon Walker. But I do think that, it's just something that.
Wait, Packers haven't drafted a wide receiver in the first round since 2002?
I think it was actually 1961 was Javon Walker. It just feels like it was that long ago. But the flip side of that, though, and it's the correct argument, is that they've done so incredibly well with wide receivers in the second and third round, whether it's James Jones or Greg Jennings or Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, all of these guys that they've gotten after the first. Randall Cobb, absolutely, in the second round. So it's just a laundry list of guys that are going to wind up in the Packers Hall of Fame that they've gotten in the second and third rounds. So do they need a first round wide receiver choice? I just think they need somebody who's going to be on the same page with Jordan Love, and they need to develop the same kind of chemistry that maybe a Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers had, or early in his career, Brett Favre with Sterling Sharp, then later on with Antonio Freeman, and Donald Driver later on in Brett's, and then early on into Aaron's careers. You just need that guy that is going to emerge. And none of those guys that I had mentioned, except for Sterling Sharp, who was drafted famously before Javon Walker, was a first round pick. And, he's finally going to the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so. But there's been a dearth of outstanding wide receivers that have been drafted in the first round by this team for the last 20 plus years.
A dearth. I like that.
Thank you. It's that Scottish education that I'm showing off.
Yeah. Let's get to a break here. On the other side, we got stuff to talk about regarding the Packers' new season ticket policy, the Jair Alexander situation, Mark Murphy giving Brian Gutekunst the okay to trade the first-round pick, and lots more from the month plus that we have been off here on the Matt Schneidman Show with both producers that I've had. They just couldn't resist coming back. They both wanted a piece. Hunter Baumgart, Doug Russell. We'll be back. Stick with us. It's the Matt Schneidman Show after the game. On the game.
I'll settle for the ghost of you. I miss you more. KB here. Miss Sue and I have worked with Brewer Contracting on 3 projects in her home: our patio, our basement, and now a bathroom remodel. And at the end of every project, we always say the same thing. Why didn't we do this earlier? Well, for us, it came down to 2 things: value and trust. We've been burned before, but Brewer Contracting earned our trust and hit our budget numbers. Our patio has become our summertime family room. The basement is my music studio, and the new bathroom is amazing. Inside of 2 weeks, Brewer Contracting transformed it from a builder-grade plastic junk bathroom into a glorious travertine tile body cleansing retreat. Most importantly, it was done well within our budget, so we know we will get a return on our investment when we sell our home. Make 2025 the year you invest in your home. Just take a look around the house, pick out a project that's been on your back burner for years, and get it started at brewercontracting.com. That's brewercontracting.com. And tell them KB sent you.
Bull riding. The perfect fusion of strength, skill, and pure willpower. Professional bull riders aren't just athletes. They're daredevils with cowboy souls. Come experience the true modern West, where 8 seconds of glory will create a lifetime of memories. It's PBR Milwaukee at Fiserv Forum Saturday, March 1st and Sunday, March 2nd. Tickets available at Ticketmaster.com and PBR.com. Hold on tight. The ride of your life is about to begin.
Old Spice Swagger Body Wash will make you the MVP of freshness and confidence. With its irresistible scent, it will transform your shower experience, leaving you feeling fresh on and off the field. Pair it with Old Spice Swagger Deodorant, the #1 aluminum-free brand that keeps you feeling like a Super Bowl champion 24/7 when used daily. But don't wait. This dynamic duo is available at Costco for a limited time only. Old Spice, official deodorant partner of the NFL and Super Bowl 59, where freshness meets football greatness.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, let's talk ED because millions of men experience it, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. Well, Hims can help. Through Hims.com, you can get a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. It all starts with an online intake form. Get started at hims.com/joy. And from there, a medical provider licensed in your state will determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find the ED treatment that fits your needs with options up to 95% less than the brand names. Millions of men experience ED, but Hims can help. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. HIMS.com/JOY.
Why did the godfather of AI warn that the very thing he helped create now has a 10 to 20% chance of leading to human extinction in the next 3 decades? And what did he learn from losing his wife to cancer about how to approach the future of AI? I'm Oz Voloshin, host of Tech Stuff, and I'm so excited to share this memorable and intimate conversation with Nobel laureate Geoffrey Hinton. Listen to Tech Stuff on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Open your free iHeart app and search Tech Stuff to start listening.
Just cool stuff.
How come the video was even released?
How cool is that?
Follow us on Instagram at 97.3 The Game.
Do you like rewards? I give you Iron Jock's new loyalty rewards program. Every time you buy Iron Jock, you'll earn points. Points you can redeem for free Iron Jock gear, that is. To celebrate this launch, now through March 2nd, take 30% off anything Iron Jock sells with promo code REWARDS30. That's REWARDS30. Plus, earn 2 times the rewards points with every long or short sleeve t-shirt purchase. Go to ironjock.com to start earning rewards points. That's ironjoc.com. And I'm also wearing my Iron Jock. Hold on.
3 for 3.
It's right here. There we go.
Bell, baby. There you go.
Still need a new box of Iron Jock stuff since I hadn't gotten any since 2 years ago, I think. So I'm getting greedy.
Hagel, do the right thing. Come on.
Thank you. All right. The Packers came out with their new season ticket information today. And there were some interesting tidbits in there. First of all, and I'm reading this directly from the Packers press release, Regular season tickets will increase between $7 and $21 per game, depending on location. Invoices were sent to season ticket holders today and are available now to view and pay online. The invoices include a brochure which outlines the new pricing and previews next season's home opponents. Preseason ticket prices, which are roughly half of regular season prices, will increase between $3 and $11 per game. Mark Murphy would go on to say, our overall average ticket price, which includes general bowl and premium seating components, is expected to be near the middle of the NFL's pricing. This is the benchmark we aim for in order to represent a great value for the top-rated Lambeau Field game day experience, to remain competitive among NFL clubs, and to perform as a good business partner league-wide in terms of shared ticket revenue. Now, if you scroll down further in this email, the most interesting part of it is, additionally, the organization is continuing its non-renewal exercise, which has taken place in recent years, to ensure Packers season tickets are being used as intended. This year, as part of the exercise, the organization declined to renew the season tickets of accounts that have sold 100% of their tickets for regular season games for multiple years. Tickets not being renewed will be offered to fans on the waiting list. So what Mark Murphy's saying is, I'm done selling season tickets to people who are just going to flip them for a profit. You're done if that's what you're doing. We want people who are going to buy them because they want to come to the games. What do you guys think of that?
I think we know someone, I'm not going to name the person, who practices this.
Who?
So it's
I don't know who you're talking about.
Somebody who works here. I would say that that's fair.
I don't either, actually.
That's fair for the team to say that. I honestly believe that, because and I will say this, the person that I'm referring to doesn't sell them for a profit, believe it or not. He just wants to recoup his money back. He likes to have the season tickets in his name. Okay, at least he's not flipping them for a profit. So I will give the person credit for that. That having been said, I mean,
can we not name the person?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
If he wants to name himself, he can. Can
we get a clue?
He works on the station. He's someone who you know.
Is he an on-air personality?
He he has been on the air.
Is it Mike Heller? I'm just guessing. I have no idea.
No, it's not Mike Heller. So there.
That's a good guess.
That was a good guess. It was a very good guess. No, it's not Mike Heller. But
is it Billy?
It's he's just gonna go through the lineup, isn't he? It's
Billy,
I think it's fair. I think it's fair, the organization, and here's why. Because Mark Murphy's right. That's what there's kind of a covenant with the Packers being a community-owned organization. And I know you have to buy stock and to be considered an owner and everything, but it's by and large a community-owned operation. And you want to make those tickets available to your community. And when there are fans who are still on that list, but they're not, fulfilling their end of the bargain, being Packers fans, and then reselling them for profit, which most people do. If you're selling them all and you've been doing it for multiple years, it's hard for me to feel sorry for someone who's going to complain about not getting their Packers season tickets, because at the end of the day, you don't own the season tickets. The Packers do. You purchase what is in essence a license that is renewable every single year. And I'm going to equate it to something that maybe isn't fair to equate it, but I'm going to anyway. If you go to the stadium and you get arrested for doing something stupid like streaking the field or whatever, causing mayhem in the stands, they can take your season tickets away as well, because on the back of each ticket, it says this ticket is a license that can be revoked at any time for any reason. And the Packers, I think, have been very reasonable about how they handle their season tickets. Even when they moved out of Milwaukee more than 30 years ago now, Bob Harlan, in his infinite wisdom, had a gold season ticket holder package and a green season ticket holder package. And the gold season ticket holder package was kind of his way of saying, when he did make the statement, we're not abandoning Milwaukee, we're abandoning a stadium. When they abandoned Milwaukee County Stadium because it was old and dilapidated and was not up to NFL standards anymore. They wanted to play all of their games at Lambeau Field because they were losing money by playing in Milwaukee, but it was just something they did for so long. So Bob Harlan created the gold season ticket holder package. That was a really reasonable solution by one of the hallmarks, one of the Mount Rushmores of Green Bay Packers football. And to think that there are fans that don't respect what the intention of having a season ticket is by reselling them, all of their tickets for multiple years, in my opinion, I don't think you deserve to keep those tickets.
So you're taking a shot at someone who works at this station. That is bold. Well, I guess not, since you're the sports director. You're kind of our boss.
Well, I mean, Tim's
is it
everybody's
Zabe?
Boss. It's just my opinion. And again, I give this person credit that works for us. He does not sell them for a profit. I think there's a difference whether if you're selling them for a profit or if you're not selling them for a profit. I think to me, there's a difference because he's not trying to make any money. He's just trying to break even. I think there's a big difference with that.
All right, let's pivot the conversation to Jair Alexander. I think that is probably the biggest news aspect of this Packers offseason that people are awaiting a conclusion on. I have said throughout the offseason that I fully expect them to part ways, whether that is via trade or release. It came out earlier this week, as we mentioned earlier, that the Packers are open to shopping Jair Alexander. Now, I would be somewhat surprised if they were able to get something back for him, because it seems, now this is not a definitive fact, it seems like a foregone conclusion that they're going to release him anyway if they aren't able to get something back. Now, why would a team give up something for Jair Alexander in draft capital if he's going to be available on the open market anyway? Because they wouldn't have to, compete with teams on the open market and potentially, pay more if they just traded for him. Now, I can see them wanting to, start over with a new contract, or, there are always ways to finagle his contract. But my point is there's probably less competition on the trade market than there would be on the open market. So teams can choose to go that way.
Yeah.
Then that begs the question of what they would get back for Jair Alexander. I know in the Corbin Smith report, there was a mention that the Packers think they can get something close to a first-round pick. I think there's a better chance. Yeah, I think there's a better chance of the sky falling. His rationale was that his rationale was that the Packers are open to trading their first-round pick for DK Metcalf because they're confident they can get something close to that, or they can recoup something close to that for Jair Alexander. There's a better chance of me walking to Indianapolis and doing the last 20 minutes of this show with Doug tonight than that happening. Not only the Packers giving up their first for DK Metcalf, but also the Packers getting something close to a first for Jair Alexander. He's a 28-year-old corner who has played, 16 of the past 37 possible games because of 4 different injuries and a suspension. When healthy, he can still be good. I don't think he's been the same player, at least from a tackling perspective, since that shoulder injury against the Steelers in 2021 in week 4 when he tackled Najee Harris and messed up his shoulder, missed 13 games that season. Could they get something in return? Sure. But I would be stunned if it's anything more than a late day 3 pick.
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I don't know if this guy's sharing his stash with the rest of the class, but I mean, to get a first or a second for, like you said, a player who has played in about half of the games of the last 3 years, someone who's going to be entering his 8th season with injury issues, with disciplinary issues. I mean, he was suspended not this past season, but the season prior to that. Yeah, I don't know what reality he's living in.
He clarified. He clarified later. Said second rounder is the top of the chain.
Oh,
I don't think they'd get
fifth rounder's top of the chain.
A day 2 selection isn't out of the realm of possibility.
I mean, they say it only takes one, right? So
I guess so.
That's the only thing that I can think of, because unless you've got a true moron who's running your football operation, and I'm not ruling that out for some NFL teams, but unless you've got a complete idiot, you're not going to have to part with anything higher than a 5th. I think a 5th is maybe a stretch.
So
Ja.
just for reference, and this is not a identical situation. This is actually a guy, for some reason, I saw standing outside the JW Marriott in Indianapolis this week when I was walking in, Stephon Gilmore. When he was traded from the Patriots to the Panthers in 2021, now Gilmore was 31 at the time, but 2 years prior in 2019, he was named NFL Defensive Player of the Year. So it's been, 2 seasons since Jair Alexander was the second team All-Pro. So the age isn't exactly comparable, but it is similar in that it's been a couple of years since they were at their peak. Stephon Gilmore went for a 2023 sixth rounder. Yeah. Every time you hear a big name floated in trade conversations, they don't go for as much as you think they should. There is, and this is not based on what I've been told, it's just common sense. Jair Alexander is not going for a day 1, or I would even think a day 2 pick. So we'll see what materializes there. Is it possible that Brian Gutekunst is trying to see what Jair's market is? Nothing enticing materializes, and they end up cutting him to free up $6.8 million in cap space. Post June 1st designation, it's about $17.5 million. It's possible, but I still believe that Jair Alexander's days as a Packer are over. I wouldn't say this provides a definitive answer on the situation, but when I asked Brian Gutekunst on Tuesday straight up, is Jair Alexander going to be on the team? He said, we'll see. We're kind of working through that. Compare that to his answer about Aaron Jones last offseason when he said he absolutely expected Aaron Jones to be on the team. And Aaron Jones was offered a nearly 50% pay cut. And he said, no. And it turned out he was no longer on the team. So if I absolutely expect him to be on the team leads to he's not on the team, what does we'll see lead to, if you get what I'm putting down there? It's possible the Packers go to Jair and say, you need to take a significant pay cut because you're not playing nearly as much as what your $21 million a year price tag demands. And Jair says, screw you, I'm going to go get paid from someone else. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ruling out the possibility that he returns. I just strongly believe that that's not going to happen. Could I be wrong? Sure.
I tend to, agree with you on that. It just seems like both sides need a fresh start, and maybe he can go somewhere else and flourish. And I hope that for him. I think that he's not a bad guy. I just think that there's some sort of disconnect between he and certainly the coaching staff and the front office. He's played some really, really good football for the Packers, but I know that he's also been a bit of a headache at times for the coaching staff as well. So again, going into your 8th season, $21 million for players played about roughly half the games over the last 3 seasons or 2 seasons. Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. I think that both sides are destined for a fresh start, a clean break, and whether or not that happens via trade, it would be a team that's desperate for a cornerback. Ironically, the Packers are desperate for a cornerback, but it would be a team that would be desperate for a cornerback that, will just try to get him in for a low round pick, just try to take a flyer on him and at a significant pay cut. So that's all it is for John. This happens all the time. This happens every year in the NFL, that there's a bigger name that you don't think is going to either get cut or traded for a pittance just because their time has come to an end in the place that they made their name in the NFL. That happens every single year.
Well, part of the reason, or the reason the Packers are so desperate for a corner is because Jair Alexander is probably going to leave. So
sure.
I don't know if that's a solution, but it is atop their priority list this offseason, along with, I would say, edge rusher and receiver. The free agent class at corner is probably the most enticing of those 3 positions, with guys like Travarius Ward from the 49ers, who's been a really good player in years past, obviously went through horrific personal stuff, losing his young daughter this past season. So he wasn't himself, understandably. I believe he even said at locker cleanout day, it might have been, that he might not want to return to the 49ers because California and being in California carries such a negative connotation because of what happened. I believe that's part of what he said. So we'll see what happens with his playing career. Carlton Davis from the Lions is set to be a free agent. Byron Murphy, a Pro Bowl starter with the Vikings, is set to be a free agent. So when I'm asked what position could the Packers spend their big money on in free agency, it could very well be corner. They've got enough money to make a couple moves. I mean, at edge rusher, it's Khalil Mack, it's Hassan Reddick, it's Josh Sweat, who had 2.5 sacks in the Super Bowl. And then I read off the wide receiver names in the free agent class. Just old guys.
Yeah.
And maybe still have a little bit left, but nobody I really see the Packers being too enticed with, especially because guys like Stephon Diggs and Chris Godwin are coming off major injuries. Then there's guys like I mentioned, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen. I just don't see the Packers being interested in guys like that, which is why I think they go through the draft to address the receiver position if they don't acquire someone in a trade.
Well, that's why I kept bringing up Devontae Adams, because it seems as though he's been lost ever since he left Green Bay. And, you know, was it Aaron Rodgers who said the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence? It's greener where you water it. Green Bay was good to Devontae, and Devontae was good to Green Bay. And when he got out, when he requested his trade, wanted to play with his friend Derek Carr in Las Vegas, which was closer to home for the team that he grew up rooting for. I get all of that. Just didn't work out. And sometimes that happens, but he knows that he has comfortability here. I guess that's just the name that just keeps popping up, because when you bring up some of those other guys, whether it's a Diggs, whether it is a Godwin, guys coming off injuries, that doesn't excite me. And I don't think that it excites anybody else. I mean, they've tried that a couple of times and it just hasn't worked out. So yeah, I mean, am I fixated on 17? Perhaps, because I think the price could be right. And I think
sounds like
could
it
be there. Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
Not a bad guy to be fixated on. I'll say
no,
that.
not at all. I still think
there's worse guys to be fixated on.
I still think there's talent there. And, you know, there weren't any more moves to make. And I don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to play, if anywhere, next year. He's
going to play for the New York Giants.
Yeah, he might. He might play for the Giants.
He is.
Just walk across the street and or walk across the hallway and shoot up in the other hallway. But you know, he can't keep dragging guys around. And for Devontae, he can't keep following his quarterbacks around because it hasn't worked out for him. So I in a sense, I feel bad for him, but in a sense, you know, you're a professional, you chose this. So, and Aaron Rodgers he's not going to have the same hand that he had with the Jets by bringing in half of his former teammates that he wanted to play with, because that didn't work out for him in New York either.
Most of them are retired.
No, that's true too. And and if they're not retired, they're washed.
That too.
I would love to get into some Aaron Rodgers conversation here, just very briefly before the break. And then in the last segment, I'd like to talk about kind of edge rusher, trading the first round pick, that whole conversation. I think Aaron Rodgers wants to still play. He changed his number, so I don't even have the real cell phone number that he has anymore. So I haven't talked to him about this. Just based on reports, it seems like he wants to still play. But is it a situation where he's willing to go play for a terrible team in order to keep that relevancy?
And
we know he loves.
And how much is he going to cost? And how much is he? I mean, is money still a big factor for him? Because it has been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. And I could see him wanting to play for the probably not the Vikings because of reasons I've mentioned before. I think he respects the Packers too much to do that and to follow Brett's exact trajectory. But for teams like the Steelers or the Rams, obviously not anymore because Matthew Stafford's going back there. Would he want to go out on a note winning 4 games with the Titans or the Raiders or the Giants? Or does he have such a craving to bounce back from 2 underwhelming seasons with the Jets that he's willing to go there, you know, mentor a Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward and maybe end his career on a better note? It'll be fascinating to see. I think from an outsider's perspective, it might damage his legacy just because as time goes on, the memories of his prolific Green Bay days become more distant. At the end of the day, he's still going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but it'll be fascinating to see how he's remembered plays out based on how this final chapter of his career eventually concludes. Is it possible he retires? Sure. I mean, it is. Whether it's his decision or the league retires him. If he does go to the Giants, that offensive line is horrible. He's going to get killed behind that offensive line. He's not as mobile as he used to be. We know he's open to mentoring young quarterbacks. He did it admirably with Jordan Love. He'd most likely have to do it with a guy the Giants draft at, what do they have, the 4th pick?
I think
Or if
sounds right.
I know there's talk about them trading up to number 1, if it's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or in the 2nd round, Jalen Milroe, Kyle McCord, Jackson Dart, I said Jalen Milroe, Will Howard. But if he does go to the Giants, the Packers do play the Giants next season. Not at Lambeau Field, but at MetLife. So we would maybe get, if Aaron Rodgers isn't benched by then, depending on when the game is, if they don't, turn to a rookie who's maybe ready, not necessarily because Aaron Rodgers is playing so terribly, but because their season's lost and they want to see what a rookie has, then we would get the, not long awaited, but the Packers Aaron Rodgers matchup that we have not yet gotten. It would have a lot more juice if it was at Lambeau Field, but I think any Packers Aaron Rodgers matchup would be enticing for all parties involved.
Speaking of being benched, I saw Ian O'Connor tweet this afternoon that the Giants could repeat 2004 when they brought in Kurt Warner and played him until number 1 pick Eli Manning was ready, or sort of ready, to start the 10th game. You could sign Aaron Rodgers, draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and tell Rodgers it's up to him to keep the rookie on the bench.
There you go.
Could be the kind of repeating itself there.
Absolutely. History always repeats itself with this guy, it seems like.
Seems like it.
Well, then let's see him in Minnesota.
We'll see if that happens. I still don't think it does.
Turning heel. Although Brett recovered from it.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't long after he finally retired that he was back waving to the fans at Lambeau in the middle of July. People paying good money. Well, it was $4. Still, people paying money to not see a game.
Yeah, I just
60,000 fans walking into the stadium so he could wave and say thank you and then walk right out. People came. It was a game day atmosphere. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life at Lambeau Field.
I just don't think Aaron Rodgers would go play for the Vikings. Now, is it possible if it's his only option,
right,
and he is hell-bent on playing one more year and finishing on a better note, is it possible that he goes to the Vikings? Sure, it's possible. I just don't think it'll happen. All right, let's get to one more break. On the other side, would the Packers actually trade their first-round pick for an edge rusher if one of these edge rushers is even available? We'll discuss that and a little bit more right here on the 3-man edition of the Matt Schneidman Show. You're listening to The Game.
In all the pandemonium and all the madness, there comes a time where you fade to the blackness. And when you're staring at that phone in your lap.
Now, here's traffic from Tri-City National Bank, your hometown bank. Call the Tri-City Total Traffic Tip Line at 414-944-5111.
Stop and go eastbound 94 between 84th and the stadium with a crash on the right shoulder. Solid on southbound 43 between Silver Spring and just before Burleigh. Stall block in the 2 left lanes. I'm Kevin Henry. That's your latest total traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Lynch Automotive family of dealerships.
It's auto show season at the Lynch family of dealerships. Take advantage of offers like 0% financing or $10,000 off MSRP or leases starting at $299. Visit shoplynch.com.
Nobody sells for less than Lynch.
Hey, Wisconsin, win an ultimate VIP experience with the Milwaukee Bucks powered by Verizon. 6 lucky winners will each receive 4 tickets to watch the Bucks play the Knicks on Friday, March 28th from the Club Lounge. Plus, you'll get early entry, an arena tour, and much more. Hurry to select Milwaukee area Verizon locations or go to www.bucks.com/Verizon to enter by March 16th. No purchase necessary to enter. Must be legal U.S. resident of Wisconsin, age 18 years or older to enter. Void where prohibited. For official rules and full details, visit www.bucks.com/Verizon.
When you're in the thick of a project, Harbor Freight is the place that always comes in handy. Whether you're picking up something for your pickup truck or a power tool for your project, at Harbor Freight, your dollar always goes further. And these days, when everything seems to cost more, you can take pride in knowing that you get hardworking tools at hardworking prices. Whatever you do, do it for less at Harbor Freight.
I'm in the business of working smarter, not harder. Hey, it's Billy Schmid. And if there is a cheat code, a secret, I want to know it. Well, the secret to losing up to 1 pound of fat every day is at Milwaukee Weight Loss. They know the secret, and their doctor-developed, easy-to-follow weight loss program helps you lose weight fast, doing it naturally and safely and without injections or drugs with the risks of serious side effects. Plus, there's no prepackaged meal program, no bars or shakes, and no exercise required. Their program helps you reset your metabolism and helps you keep weight off for good with a coach there for ongoing support. The program also costs up to half as much and works up to twice as fast as most other weight loss programs that you either heard of or maybe even tried. So go to MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com today and schedule your free consultation. Like many patients, I lost 20 to 30 pounds in the first month or two. That's up to a pound a day. So schedule your free consultation by calling 262-433-4008. That's 262-433-4008, or visit them online at MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. And when you sign up, make sure you tell them that you heard about it on the game and that Billy Schmid sent you.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-743-8080. That's 1-800-743-8080. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-743-8080. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
The Fox 6 weather experts are presented by AdventKnows.com.
A very mild day on the way with a high near 54. Very strong wind from the southwest to start the day, gusting up around 40 miles per hour for a while.
Night. eBay. Things people love.
The game.
Get jazzy on.
All right, wrapping up the Match Schneidman show here with Hunter Baumgart and Doug Russell. One of the more interesting parts of Brian Gutekunst's meeting with us in Indianapolis earlier this week was when he was asked about his draft picks this year, and Mike Spofford of Packers.com basically said, Brian, you don't have as many picks as you've had in recent years. He said, yet. You don't have as many picks yet.
Yet.
He loves his draft picks. They have 7 right now. They've had like 13 or 11 or 12 in years past. I can't remember the exact numbers. So I followed up that answer with, so safe to say you're not trading your first round pick for an edge rusher then? And he said, well, it depends what edge rusher. And then I said, well, you know, there's a narrative out there that you're not going to trade your first round pick because the draft is in Green Bay. And he said, funny enough, Mark Murphy has actually joked with him that he is allowed to trade that first round pick. And it's, I don't believe it's actually a joke. I just meant he said it in a lighthearted manner.
Sure.
Brian Gutekunst made it very clear that the location of the draft will have no bearing on his willingness to trade the first round pick if that scenario arises. So I want to go around the horn here very quickly. Do the Packers trade the first round pick for any player this offseason? My guess is no.
My guess is no. I think that Brian Gutekunst really covets those first round picks. I know he's traded out and traded down on several occasions. And obviously it depends on what's going to be on the board and how the board falls. But my gut is he's going to stand pat at 23.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also think that too. I think it has nothing to do with the Packers or the draft being in Green Bay. I think it's just the fact that they like those draft picks. And it's tough to see that happening.
He did say he's been close multiple times before during his tenure as Packers general manager to trading a first round pick for a player. Now, he didn't say who. We didn't even ask who. I don't think he would have said it anyway, but Khalil Mack is the Obvious answer here, correct?
Probably, you would think.
Yeah. When he was traded to the Bears from the team I was covering at the time, the Raiders and the Packers were in the mix, and then Khalil Mack wrecked shop against the Packers in the game Aaron Rodgers infamously left on a cart and then came back and won that game.
That was fun.
That was a Packers prime. That was
and now Khalil Mack might end up being a Packer, just signed as a free agent. So
well, it's like when John Kuhn shipped Julius Peppers only to have him be teammates in a couple of months.
There you go. Exactly.
These things happen.
So it'll be fascinating to see how this Packers offseason plays out. We'll be back throughout this offseason intermittently. Appreciate you joining us once again. For Doug, for Hunter, I'm Matt. Enjoy your weekend.